Hello everybody, in this video I'll be showcasing my Chaos Ice Monk build, a late game level 65 strong monk build that will wreck, primarily using chaos damage, chaos skills in its build with some good gear, and only one ice ability. Funny enough, that is honestly going to be really good. You can honestly use the second ice build if you want, or replace the current ice ability I'm going to with a different one if you like. But the primary focus for this build is chaos damage combined with your melee attacks above anything else. But before I get to the passive skill tree or even the skills you're using, let's talk about gear here, as it is very vital to survivability as well as your damage output and just other things that affect this build or even the build you're trying to go for, because you can always tweak this build to your liking where you want. With the flask here, go with what you feel is best for you. Honestly, both with the health flask for health as well as the mana flask, I just went with these little 60 ones here, as you can see, and a good quality here, 5% quality for the mana and 15% quality for the health flask here. But yeah, go for what you feel is best for you, which works for your build in my opinion. But when it comes to the gear, as I've been talking about in previous build videos for the monk that I'm working on, it is definitely important to have evasion and energy shield as a focus for your gear set, as well as some life regen. And if you can sprinkle in, maybe a plus to your intelligence or dex, or even, crit damage, or even your extra life or mana, great. But I would say more importantly is your evasion and energy shield, just because that's what the monk focuses on in terms of defenses to survive. As you can see here for the armor, I decided to place in a rune that gives me the iron rune, I should say, gives you 20% increased armor, evasion, energy shield. I didn't necessarily want the extra fire damage. I'm not trying to go for fire primarily here. It's just, it's RNG, guys. You're going to run into this issue. So if it's only like one element in here and certain your gear, it's not going to be that drastic of a thing. And you're just taking a gamble. You do take a gamble if you want to use the Chaos Orb to try and remove one of these randomly. So up to you on that, but I decided to just go with it and keep it because this has majority of what I'm looking for the build, with plus 207 to accuracy rating, which helps the projectiles I do and just my attacks being accurate with hitting enemies. And then plus 85 to maximum life, definitely need some more life. And 16% increased critical damage bonus. We're doing some nice crit in here as well in the passive skill tree. And plus 27 to dexterity, which is very good. Then we got leech, 7.74% of physical attacks damage as life. Once again, life regen is very good. I don't particularly like the whole get life on killing enemies thing, just because you run to bosses where they don't have ads that you can kill to get life back. So it kind of defeats the purpose in that regard with having that. So I try not to have builds that utilize killing enemies and getting life from it. I'd rather you get life from life regen on your gear, or leeching life from enemies, or just from like when you attack them, just get life back, not necessarily from killing them. That's what I got there for the gloves. For the belt, I got a plus to my mana here, 82, 20% increased flash life recovery rate, which is good, 10% increased charm effective duration, 9% to lightning resistance. So if you can get resistance as well too, that's also important. I forgot to mention that, like help build up your lightning, chaos, fire, ice resistance. That's going to be very important for endgame. And 10% increased flash charge gain. So for some reason, I don't know what's going on, but the devs did say they were supposed to increase the drop rate of belts that give you like 2 or even like 3 slots. I'm still only rocking a 1 slot for charm slot belt here, and I've played almost 200 hours of this game so far. Still haven't gotten it. And there's people that have played way more than I have and still haven't gotten a freaking belt that has 2 or even 3 slots on it. It's insane. For the boots, I decided to go with these and essentially had enough exalted orbs as well too to get all this gear the way I wanted to for most part. Put an iron rune in this one as well to get more evasion and energy shield. This also helps with movement speed. I was lucky enough to get movement speed on this, 20% increase. And then more maximum life added in here, maximum mana added in here, as you can see. And this was lucky as well too, 25% increased rarity of items found, which is going to be good for farming. Personally, I'm not going to be like so focused on using my monk for farming per se. It's going to be more so my witch or sorceress skills is probably a better clear. Well, not saying I couldn't clear with this. It's just the way I got this built up. It's not going to be like as good as those type of builds for witcher or sorceress, or even like a different monk build. That's going to be like clearing maps so freaking fast. That's not what this build is necessarily about per se. like one-shotting or three-shotting bosses type of thing or clears. I just wanted to be something different. I don't like doing meta builds, at least not right away, or at least not full meta builds. And I believe PoE1 didn't have a monk, and I think PoE1 used chaos damage, but not for monk. So this is something different. I'm making chaos damage work for the monk as a big DPS dealer here, and focus on dot damage too, which is freaking fantastic. Then you got plus 52 is stun threshold as well to help with that, and plus 20% to fire resistance, which helps. For the one of the rings here, cannot seem to find one above level 40 to like 42-ish, but was able to get a lot of good stuff here with the 10% to cast resistance and more to my evasion rating, as you can see there, more to maximum mana, and even more increased rarity of items found. And then got 20% to cold resistance and 8% to lightning resistance and 1 life regen per second. Not super great, but you know, it's RNG, so you get what you get. The second ring, I got 27% to cold resistance, so basically get my resistance in here where I can. The fire damage added in, not necessarily what I'm trying to focus on. Honestly, monk, when it comes to elements, mostly is either like ice or chaos or lightning, not necessarily fire early on. You can get fire later on if you want to build into that, but it's definitely more of like about ice, lightning, or chaos when it comes to elements. And then I did increase my chaos damage to this one, which is very important because the more chaos damage, the better. Plus 17 to maximum mana and more fire resistance there. This one has gain 21 life per enemy killed. I got stuck with that, and gain 6 mana per enemy killed. Got stuck with that as well. I felt like the pros outweigh these, even though I didn't want the two, gain life or mana on enemies killed. I'll eventually try to get a ring that doesn't have that and just has other stuff that I feel like is better, either like leeching, in my opinion. So yeah, when it comes to the body armor, and mind you, I got all this stuff, try to get its quality up 10% there, 6%. Try to get good quality if you can. If you get the resource to build it up, do that as well too. I got my body armor to 20% though, which is the max you can get it to, because I felt like the body was the more important one. And you see at the high evasion rating energy shield there, plus 2 iron runes I put in here as well to add to that. And I was lucky enough to get a little bit more to evasion rating here with the plus 4, energy shield plus 3, 68% increased evasion and energy shield. And surprisingly enough, more to my spirit as well, which is very important to use for my buffs. I'll go into in a bit. Plus 47 in spirit, 15% reduced attribute requirements, 22.9 life regen per second, which is fantastic. And 47% reduced bleeding duration on you, which is good. Certain means will do bleed on you. Amulet wise, level 44. Couldn't find anything above this yet, but this is really important because of life regen on it. It's 3 life regeneration per second, also added with the 16.2, as you can see there. And then don't necessarily use armor, but it just got stuck with that, so it is what it is. And evasion ratings increased there, more maximum life, more cast speed, and 8+ to dexterity. Very, very nice there. Headpiece, once again, get that quality up at least as much as you can, because this armor is going to last me a while anyway. Now with this one, I decided to go with, I believe, the vision rune, which essentially helps with my accuracy, so I'm more accurate with my hits. And also helps with 10% increased life and mana recovery from flasks as well. And this also has built into it the 9% increased evasion and energy shield, plus 48 to maximum life, plus 13 maximum mana, plus 20 dexterity, 16 intelligence, and more fire resistance. So yeah, I find stuff like that's really cool. The weapon I'm using here is a quarterstaff as usual, but I've got a quality of 11% up to it, so it does a lot of physical damage there, as you can see. Elemental damage of ice, since we're combining ice with chaos. The lightning in there was a random thing that happened as I was upgrading. I didn't want it, much like the fire damage. It's just there. The pros outweigh this kind of con. I didn't want to do lightning damage with this, but it is what it is. But this is where I'm at right now. And I do have the body runes here, 2 of them to leech life from physical damage. So, and one thing you might want to do and consider is maybe increase physical damage on the past skill tree later on. So I'm thinking about doing myself. But yeah, 37% increased physical damage, get more cold damage in here, lightning, more accuracy rating, critical hit chance as well as increase, and more attack speed, and then stun build up because we're still using Tempest Bell in the build. So let's get into the skills. Now I'm still using my quarterstaff. When it comes to support gems for the core staff, still using martial tempo, which is really good. You have more attack speed with that. Super critical, which is very, very good. Has 100% critical damage bonus. Support skills have 20% less critical hit chance though, so less chance to hit, but when it does, it's just going to do even more damage. Close combat, decided to keep that in here as well too, because it's going to help when you're essentially surrounded, just melee, you do more damage within a certain meter of enemies being around you. And then Soul Thief, I decided to add on as a help with getting mana back. So essentially 5% of physical attack damage from support skills as mana. So leeching mana as well is important because we're using quite a bit of mana in this build. Essence Drain is still in here. And then I got Chaotic Freeze as a support gem for this. So chaos damage contributes to the freeze buildup. I didn't even notice this thing I could do. Essentially combine chaos damage with ice, and it helps with that. It's so freaking awesome. Because freezing enemies when they're about to try and do major damage to you is freaking dope. And bosses too, especially when they're in midair. So that helps with that, basically. Contribute to the freeze buildup and ice damage. Intense Agony does dot damage. Basically debuffs inflict on full life enemies by support skills. Does 50% more damage. But has 25% less skill effect duration, sadly. Hinder is very good because hinders essentially slows the movement of enemies, helps slow them down, things like that. Hex Blast, as you can see here, and also you can check my damage here. I'm doing a lot of melee, almost 3,500 on the melee damage, 3K on Hex Blast, which will pop heads just nicely. I'll show you gameplay thoroughly of that here in a bit. Do 1,000 at least on Essence Drain, which is nice. But yeah, Hex Blast, you'll know, it's essentially an AoE that has a cooldown. You combine it with Despair, so you'll use Despair first, and then Hex Blast to combine with it, and it just decimates. It's basically your AoE combination to get rid of enemies. Hourglass is very good. Skills have 40% more damage, but has a plus 10-second on cooldown. So does more damage, but longer cooldown. Extraction, gain 20% damage as extra chaos damage, which is good. And you sacrifice 10% of your life on use. Not a big deal because we got a bunch of life regen. Magnified Effect, I decided to put this on here instead of keeping on the belt. So this has 4% more AoE, basically. Very good on the AoE, so we essentially kill more mobs quicker. Tempest Bell I keep in here because it's such a good thing for mobs and bosses, so I had to keep it in here. Decided to try out something a little bit of poison with this skill. I'm not going to necessarily keep this though. I was just trying to experiment with this, possibly adding poison into the build a little bit. But I decided I'm eventually just keep with ice and chaos only, take poison out. So I'm going to take this off and, replace something else. I haven't figured it out yet. But if you want to try that, go ahead. You don't necessarily have to have Envenom to have poison on there. Just experiment with this. Expanse gives it 50% more AoE, but plus 6 seconds on the cooldown. And then Ruthless, every 5th use of support attacks causes 500% more stun buildup, which is very good against bosses. Dark Effigy is basically like a turret that only affects enemies affected by chaos damage. So I've buffed this a little bit differently. Acceleration's on there, support skill. It gives it 40% more projectile speed. Then Arcane Tempo gives it 20% more cast speed, which is very good. And then for a little defense, I decided to go with Ironwood, which essentially gives it plus 40% to all elemental resistances. So that way, because enemies will attack it, and this helps give it a bit more, lasting effect overall. Despair, which I said earlier, combines with Hex Blast, so you'll pop this, essentially applies curses. You've gotten Penny Doom, which essentially helps if you decide that you don't want to use Hex Blast right away, or it's on cooldown and you're using this, well, essentially when the curse ends, enemies' heads will pop. And Focus Curse zones from support skills erupt after 30% reduced delay. And then Decaying Hex inflicts decay, dealing 6% of intelligence as chaos damage per second for 8 seconds, basically making it more damaging, more fun to use. The only ice ability I have in here is Glacial Cascade. Converts 6% of physical damage to cold damage, which is nice. And support skills I got in here is Concentrate Effect. Basically gives it 40% more area damage, but 50% less AoE. Not bad per se, but still helpful in dealing with mobs. There's another ice ability you can use instead or with this if you want. Cold Infusion, I got this in here because it's really helpful in terms of extra cold damage. And I'm not really focused on lightning or fire with this, so that's fine with me. Inevitable Critical. Support skill gains 20% increased critical hit chance each second, up to 100%. This critical hit chance is lost whenever a skill supported by Inevitable Critical hits. So very good. You can do crit hits with your glacial cascade if you like. Now let's go into buffs here. I got 3 buffs on this. You don't necessarily have to have all 3 of these. So someone in the community suggested try Blast Me Out. So I don't have any support gems yet for this. I'm trying it out. You can honestly probably keep Cascade on here and then maybe get rid of Blast Me for a second ice build if you want. So I'll go into what you could use there in a bit. But yeah, no support gems yet for this. I just haven't gotten enough support gems to create any support gems for this to be more effective. But it does take up 60 of your spirit, so keep that in mind. Withering Presence, though, is the more important one I want to keep on here. Withered duration is 4 seconds. Withers enemies in your presence are 2.3 seconds. So basically weakens enemies in my presence. I got Clarity on here. Helps with mana regen. Vitality. Basically life. Grim Feast, another one suggested by one of my community members to maybe try out and see how I like it. Grim Remnants recovers 70 energy shield, 50% chance to spawn a remnant when an enemy or reviving minion dies in your presence. Now you're thinking like, wait, but you're not using minions, Mike. No, I'm not using minions, but it's still effective when you are going through the map and you're essentially killing mobs, enemies, that you can keep your shield up. And this will help with your shield staying up more frequently than staying down, stuff like that. So yeah, I do that anyway. Obviously, this came from the witch tree, I believe, or set of skills. So I want to try it out. And then herbalism is the sports skill I got so far. Just once again, don't have enough sport gems yet to get more on this. At 30% increased recovery from life flask while sports skill is active, so helps with survivability there if you want to have that on there. Then let me not forget, guys, if you want to, like I said, you can take out a Blast Me buff, put in Wave of Frost, which actually is going to be more of like a better maybe AoE for mobs. And does convert 8% of physical damage to cold damage in the wavelength of 6 meters. Some support gems you can put in here is Ice Bite. Gain 35% of damage as cold, damage for 3 seconds on freezing an enemy with supported skills. Then you got Glaciation. Support skills cost 50% more freeze buildup. And if you're able to build into more slots here, you can always add in either Deep Freeze to help with that, or even Frost Nexus, or Cold Penetration to get beyond their cold resistance a bit more. So there's something to think about. Now for the passive skill tree here. Now it says level 66, but this is intended to be a level 65 build. I was farming, trying to get more exiles, things like that, and it's leveled up, but I didn't use the skill point, as you can see. I left that alone because it's intended to be level 65 build for late game and going into endgame. Now I did get a few more ascendancy points, so which allows me to get reality rending. And as you see here, this is freaking awesome to help with more chaos damage with all it can do. Low percentages of chance of happening, but still very effective. Already built into chaos damage here and increased skill speed. I decided also to take the 4th point and put into 7% to chaos resistance. What I'm probably going to end up doing though when I get my last 4 is I want to put 1 into more chaos resistance basically. And that way it doubles that. And then I'll probably go into some mana leeching right here. I'm not gonna worry about this last one just because you only get 4 more altogether. So yeah, I'm gonna try how mana leech is later on once I get the rest of the ascendancy points, because you only get 8 total. Still focused on the same spot as where it was before. My bad, guys. With the passive skill tree, you want to get some defenses early on. And I decided to go back into mindful awareness and get some more evasion energy shield here for this. So mana regen, evasion energy shield here early on, get some skill speed up as well, get some damage, get some crit. Flow like water as well is really good. Decided to get some intelligence here nodes because I needed them to have my intelligence where it's at right now. And went into flow state for more skill speed. Critical chance as well too, because crit is important. And more intelligence nodes here. I decided to go into reduce mana costs as well as conservative casting because I need more mana regen and reducing the cost of my mana spells basically. And went more intelligence, and then went and spell damage here and cast speed, and then spell haste, spell damage. We got spell blade as well since we are wielding a melee weapon. Why not? And more spell damage. And attack damage over here to the right with more attack speed and 10-fold attacks, which is really good. Gives you plus 10 strength, which you kind of need for this. Went into more attack damage and Killer Instinct. Gives you more attack damage on full life. Well, 30% at least, and then even more when you're low life. so do more damage. You can keep going up and get more intelligence nodes here, as well as to the left here. And I didn't pick this up yet, Resonate. I'm not picking that up yet, but I want to get dexterity. I got this jewel here, Gale Essence. If you're able to get this, please do. It gives me more cast damage, as you can see. Increased critical spell damage bonus. 50% increase skill effect duration. Damage penetrates 7% cold resistance as well, which works very nicely with Chaos and Ice in this build. And when we're here for more crit, and decide to get plus 10 intelligence here on this one, I stop there. More crit, and I got True Strike as well for more dexterity as well and more crit. So I left it alone there. And we went into chaos damage over here. An Event Horizon gives you 53% increased chaos damage, lose 3% on life, and energy shield when you use a chaos skill. It's not super bad if you build into life regen, guys, like I showed you in the gear earlier. Don't worry about this too much. It's really not that bad. And went into Spaghettification, which gives you more movement speed, more chaos damage, more chaos resistance. Actually, no, negative 13% of chaos resistance, sorry. And reduce light radius, and then 7% increase to attributes. It's honestly worth it, though, from what I'm doing in terms of damage output. Let me not ignore this over here, though, as I went into some intelligence nodes, and then made this dex, made this strength, because I needed 5 strength. I went into some curse buffs here to give me more AoE for my curses. Sona control, which is really good. So curses basically hinder enemies. It helps out with that, slowing them down, because enemies will come at you fast. Certain ones will. But back up here, as I go up more, I decided to get another jewel here and got some good stuff overall here. The only negative is the magnitude of ignite you inflict. We don't do fire damage really in this build. That's not the intention, but everything else here is very good and important, with the increased spell damage, increased critical damage once, and the increased curse duration. And then I went up here to the left with more intelligence nodes, because I want to go up to here, get more chaos damage, right? And then pure chaos. Also, withered effect went into this, reason being and wither away. So this combines with the withering presence, right? Withered applies 5% increase chaos damage taken and can be inflicted up to 10 times. So that's very good for enemies. And unwithered enemies are withered for 8 seconds when they enter your presence. 20% increase effect of withered. Very awesome. And then I didn't forget about ice. I decided to go into more cold damage and then heavy frost to get some more freeze buildup. And hits ignore non-negative elemental resistance of frozen enemies. Also went here for thin ice for more freeze buildup and 50% increased damage with hits against frozen enemies. Very, very nice. And that's where I'm at with the skill tree. Not sure exactly where I may go per se from there. I did build into, and I forgot to mention this earlier, a little bit of more evasion energy shield right here. I'm most likely going to go into more of this as well. Show this off first. As you see, it does really good, decent damage and freezes. It's very nice. And you get the Grim Feast already going into effect there. Most time you'll pop out the Spare with Dark Effigy. Let them go to work. You can always do a Essence Drain here, and you see them pop. Now, these guys got bigger health pools. I usually don't do more than a step, but they go down pretty quick. And chaos damage builds into freeze buildup, which is amazing. Hex blast here. Boom, pop. And if you want to know physical damage, you are going to wreck. This could obviously, benefit from more attack speed and more physical damage output, which I will build into a bit more later on, most likely. So while not as, clear fast as maybe like an ice focused or even lightning focused, ice and lightning focused type of build that I've been seeing like with Ice Strike and other things like that, I still want them to make a good, solid chaos build that can still clear, you can have fun with. There's also Tempest Spell that'll clear very well too and help with that. Tempest Spell I usually say most time for more dangerous mobs and boss fights usually. Either way, I hope this late game level 65 monk build was helpful to you and informative to you, and you learned something today from it. Maybe, try it out for yourself or try to expand upon it in your own way. I'm definitely open to suggestions how to make it better. Like I said, comment below on that. And like the video if you enjoyed this, found it helpful. Subscribe if you're new. I got more build videos coming for you guys as soon as I can get them out to you. It's going to take some time because this game is quite a bit in terms of, like, you know, the amount of content and just other classes to get through as well too. But stay tuned for that. My name is Mike, and I'll see you next video.